Over the last few years, I've heard more stories about young people suffering from cardiac arrest.
And I said, what's happened to my son?
25 years old, was out for a jog and experienced cardiac arrest and died.
Did he have COVID? Did he have the vaccine and whatnot? And yeah, you know, you can sit there and say, well, my son or my daughter, well, they're healthy. They don't have any issues. Well, guess what? My son was healthy as well.
Hey, what's up? Welcome to the Off Air Podcast. I'm Slater.
I'm Marjo.
And you may be familiar with Damar Hamlin's story, a young football player who suffered cardiac arrest on the field, but you may not be familiar with Jake Hescock, who had the same thing happen to him jogging on the streets of Boston in December a few years ago. His mother is here, Carey Hescock, who's courageous enough and brave enough to share his story.
Yeah, it's pretty inspiring to hear everything that her family has gone through and how her sharing his story and starting the Jake Hescock Memorial Foundation can help other families and hopefully help screen kids who might have a heart defect and prevent something like this happening again. And just the positivity that she exudes despite, you know, going through this tragedy. It's a great episode.
It is a great episode. And remember, if you guys like the content, subscribe and share and help the channel grow. This is the Off Air Podcast. We appreciate it. Carey Hescock.
Carey Hescock. Slater's from Lynn, so
Right.
that's why.
I can't tell.
Yeah, you're not Carey Hescock. You're Carey.
I'm
Hescock.
Carey.
Carey.
Okay.
Right. I just swallowed my gum, and Marjo said it's going to grow in your belly.
A watermelon. Isn't that what your mom used to tell you when you were a kid?
No, that was a seed.
Yes, my mother did tell me that, but that's because they didn't want you to swallow it.
Right.
That's the only reason why.
Yeah.
Or don't they say it like lives in your stomach forever? Like it never.
Well,
Anyway.
I don't know if that's true.
Pleasure to have you on the podcast. How brave of you to come on, and we're here to talk today about how young people can suffer cardiac arrest.
Yes,
And
young people,
young
not just
people,
athletes.
Yeah.
Young people in general.
Your son at 25 years old was out for a jog and experienced cardiac arrest and died.
He did. Yeah.
So take us through that day.
Sure.
Well, actually, tell us a little bit about Jake briefly, and take us through that day.
Okay. So Jake was, ambitious, outgoing, confident, didn't always excel at sports, believe it or not, even though he was gifted and had, he was a 6'7". And actually he was on the thin side when he was younger.
6'7"?
He was 6'7". When he finally reached his,
Yeah.
done growing, I
Yeah.
should say.
What did he eat as a child? Like
he ate everything. He wasn't fussy.
My girlfriend's nephew's 6'7" too, and he plays
Really?
and he plays football.
I think some of this
Yeah.
is genetics. I don't think it's
well,
necessarily
it
why you're
is.
being
I think-
Is your
you're
husband
good.
tall?
No, he's average. He's
Who's tall?
average.
Who's tall in your family?
Well, so I have a.
I'm sure your husband loves hearing that. He's
I
just
know.
average.
He's average.
My husband's nothing great. He's average.
Sorry, Jeff.
Poor guy. Nothing wrong with average.
No, but anyway, he was quite amazing. He was a character, very funny. He didn't waste time, believe it or not. From the time he was little, he didn't waste time. He got up with a plan and a purpose every day. He was a pain in my ass at times, to be honest with you, like
Sure.
all teenagers. But he was such a joy to be around. He really was a joy to be around, and that's what I miss most. I just miss his hugs, his joking.
So he's on his way to potentially play professional football for a living, and he's what, 23, 24 at this point?
Yeah. I want to say, his breakout season was 2020. I think that's when he was playing his best ball.
Right.
And that's when Coach Heupel was the head coach for UCF.
And he is working out regularly,
Working
history
out,
of
eating
any,
well.
right.
Occasionally they go out, the team, and
Right.
he would drink beer.
Yeah,
and
of
sure,
course,
like
yeah.
a normal
Yeah,
college,
yeah.
Right.
Right.
student.
Right. But his physical fitness, his physical health has always been a priority to him.
Yep.
Right.
He ends up graduating from UCF, decides that he's not going to pursue a professional career with football any longer. And due to, changing of coaches and whatnot, he lost some of his self-esteem, to be honest with you. So anyway, but he did have potential to go pro. And I had said that to him once. I said, are you sure you don't want to try out? Like, you should just go to the combine. At least just, showcase. And then if it's meant to be, it'll be. And if not, then fine. And he said, Mom, I have no doubt that I can make it pro. I have no doubt in my mind that I can make it. He said, I'm just not sure I want to anymore. And I was like,
interesting.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
and to play at that level, the hits that your body takes, everything, you have to be in the mindset of wanting to give up absolutely everything for that goal. And if you're not there,
you're right. And I think his mindset started to change. And we would ask him after every game, like, how do you feel? We'd always call him and he'd be on the bus or, getting on board the plane. And he'd say, I feel like my body has been slammed into a brick wall.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
We
this
say
is
that
when
after
he's young.
every game.
Imagine doing that for 10 years in the
Right.
NFL. Like, you have to have that. If your mindset isn't there,
Yeah.
it's not going to.
So he wants to pursue medical sales.
Yep. He decided that's what he wanted to do. And
Gets the job.
Well, he struck out 3 times.
Right.
Because one, he didn't wear a suit to an interview, and then we couldn't believe it. I'm like, you didn't wear a suit to the interview? And he's like, but
You gotta wear a suit.
Well, that's what I thought. But then when I talked to some of the younger kids, they were
This
like,
is President Zelensky
well,
from
they're
Ukraine?
like,
Doesn't
they
wear a
go,
suit?
well, big deal, he didn't
Anybody
wear a
gets that
suit.
joke?
I go, parent.
Was that from Blues Brothers? Is that from Blues Brothers? Is that what we're talking about?
No.
Oh.
The president of Ukraine had to wear a suit to the White House. Nobody gets
Oh, sorry. I missed that. I thought Zelensky was the... Oh, no, that's the auto part. Never mind. I'm all over the place. I'm going to have to cut that out, Ryan.
Don't cut
funny.
that out. That's
Anyway.
that's Zelensky, not Zelensky.
Whatever.
Oh, God.
Anyway.
Oh,
At least I know what a tight end is.
That's
Moving
right.
on.
That's
Moving
right,
on.
you
fair
do.
enough. Touche.
Everybody has their own strengths and weaknesses. So he
So.
eventually ends up getting essentially his dream job
Yep,
with this
he
company.
ends up getting his dream job. It's a position in the upper New England region,
Yeah.
back home
Yeah.
where he wanted to be. So he moved back from Florida in September of 2022 with his dog Snoop in tow. They hopped into a moving van and all his belongings, and they come back home. And
His mind on his money and his money on his mind.
That's right.
Right.
That's right.
Sipping gin and juice.
Yeah, that's right. Well, he did say to me, he said, Mom, he's like, I can get this job. And he said, I can potentially make $400,000 a year, and I don't have to bash my body,
Yeah.
Yeah.
and hurt myself anymore. And I was like, when he said that, I was like, okay.
Which is a mature decision to
I
make for
understand.
somebody that age.
Yeah.
To, you
Yeah.
know.
Well, now, how did Dad feel about this?
Dad was disappointed.
Absolutely.
Dad
Wants his
was
son to be a big pro football player.
Well, that was the thing. And we sacrificed so much to be able to,
Yeah.
spending money on camps and,
Prep school, traveling.
Yeah.
all
prep
the-
school,
yeah.
travel,
Coaching.
everything.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it was disappointing, to be honest with you. But when he explained it to us like that, we were like, okay, we just had to surrender to the fact that this was his life. This isn't our life. This is his life.
Yeah.
And he deserves to live it the way that he wants to live it.
Yeah.
And make his own decisions.
Yeah.
And so he was home. He was, pursuing a career with Stryker. And on Monday, December 5th, he packed up his car and he was moving to Boston. And he left our home. We FaceTimed with him that evening. He said, in the morning, I'm going to go out for a jog before I go and meet the rep from Stryker at the hospital. And we were like, okay. And I wasn't alarmed because he would periodically go out for a jog. Did he jog every day? No, but he would periodically go out for a jog. And listen, the kid was playing Division I football in Florida, and sometimes it was 110 degrees on the field with full, in full gear.
Yeah. So his cardio was pretty on point.
He was correct.
Yeah.
He was. Yeah, he was very healthy, very fit. He endured, all types of weather. So anyway, it was a mild morning in December in Boston. I think it was in the mid 50s maybe. And I was getting ready for work. And, I have to tell you, I had this feeling like I should call out. I had a feeling something was nudging me, and I ignored it. And I was like, well, I can't let my team down. I have to go to work. And so I was going to call him on my way to work, but I didn't.
Bless you.
And yeah, bless you.
Do you believe I just did that? Right.
Yeah, I can. It's
Right,
okay.
right,
natural-
right in the middle of it.
Natural human function. It's okay.
That's all right.
Unbelievable.
Maybe it's
Sorry.
Jake fucking with his mom.
I was going to say, that's the kind of shit he did. Trust me.
Today's episode of Off Air with Slater and Marjo is brought to you by Berkshire Adventures. Berkshire Adventure Tours, e-bike tours, picturesque picnics, private e-bike rides, Cloud9 seats, hidden gems, and scenic picnics. I did one of these the other day. Can't recommend it enough. Great local guide here in the Berkshires. So BerkshireAdventureTours.com. You can find them on social media.
I got to work and my phone rang and it came up Jake. And I was like, I immediately pick it up and I'm like, oh, hi, honey. And it was a woman. And she said, whose phone am I calling? And I wasn't alarmed. And I said, oh, this is my son Jake's phone. And she goes, okay, well, we have it here at Mass General. And I said, oh, that's okay. I said, he's there meeting a rep from Stryker. I said, he's just starting his job today. He probably left
thought
it
it was
somewhere.
God.
I said, but he's there in your facility. I'm sure you'll find him. And then she said, does he have any medical conditions we need to be aware of? And I knew.
That's what
and it clicked. And I went, oh, and I said, what's happened to my son? I thought that she was going to tell me that he had passed. But I couldn't receive the message she wanted to give me, so I literally crawled on my hands and knees to my boss. And I handed her my phone, and my phone sucked at that time. I had to have it on speaker in order to hear, and he had to turn it sideways. Otherwise, you couldn't hear.
Yeah.
And so, of course, at that time, my boss was in her early 70s, and she's like, huh, what? And I'm getting frustrated because I'm thinking, lady, just keep my phone on speaker and receive this message. Mm-hmm. So they finally told her that he he was out for a jog, and a Good Samaritan had found him and was had provided CPR, and that they had him, and they were going to be admitting him into ICU. But he was still in the emergency room at that time when she called. They were able to break into his phone, and I must have been an emergency contact. Mm-hmm. Lucky me. I was hoping, it should have been Jeff, because I'm not good in these types of situations, obviously. So anyway, I was crying, and I think I was screaming, and I worked at a med spa as an office manager at that time, and my two friends that worked at the front desk came running, and I just said, could you call Jeff? You need to call my husband. And so Jeff works right down the street, and he ran to us, to me, and I just said, something's happened. Something terrible has happened to Jake. So once we got the information, they said that, they were working on him, and I just said to Jeff, I don't want to hear we just have to go. We just have to get in the car and go. So we got in our car and we started driving to Boston. And then I had the wherewithal to call my brother-in-law, who lives in North Andover. And I said, you need to get to Mass General. We're en route. Something's happened to Jake. But we need you to be there, and we need you to advocate for, for the hospital to us and vice versa. So he was on it. And then one of Jake's friends, word had gotten out. I started calling people to pray for him because I didn't know what to do, right? I was like, okay, we need to stop what you're doing. You need to go to church, and you need to all pray. I don't know why, but it was important for me to go to a church and pray rather than just be home praying. And so we called his friends, because I should also let you know, the night before, he was with a couple of buddies who lived there, and we were like, well, what did you do? Like, what did you do something? Like,
right.
I mean, he didn't do drugs, but we were like, did you do drugs?
Right.
Yeah,
did you drink too much? Like, what happened? They were like, he had 3 beers and he went home. We watched the Celtics. So we made sure that, nothing out of the ordinary had happened. Mm-hmm. And so then one of his friends called another friend, and Hannah, and she was an ICU nurse. And she was working in Boston. So she also went to Mass General. And so my brother-in-law, Jack, and Hannah were trying to find Jake, and they couldn't find him because they had taken him from the emergency room up to the cath lab to put a catheter in. And so they, anyway, Hannah was getting upset. How did you lose a 6'7" person? But anyway, when they don't know the person's name, at Mass General, they were naming them after states. And ironically, they named Jake Tennessee. I think back about that now, and it's like Coach Heupel, who was Jake's coach at UCF, who left, who was a great mentor to Jake, ended up coaching at Tennessee. Kind of funny how that, I think back about that. But anyway, we finally get there, and they had admitted him to ICU, and they warned us when we went back, he's on all these tubes and whatnot, and he had smashed his face because, of course, he fell face first. Yeah. So the plastic surgeon was in, and she was getting prepared to sew his face. He had a gash over his eyebrow, and he had a gash on his cheek and whatnot. And we just, we were pretty upset, of course, to see him in that state. But we made sure that we were thanking everyone for, trying to save his life. And at that point, to be honest, I didn't know how critical it was. I didn't know.
Was he jogging on a main street with everyone around?
Yeah. Yeah. And what happened was a security guard was across the street and had it on surveillance camera. Yeah. And so he went to his aid. And we were told that a state trooper also came to help the security guard. Because of Jake's stature, you get really tired when you perform CPR. So they were taking turns. The one thing I never found out, and I assume it didn't happen, was, did the state trooper have an AED in his vehicle? Yeah. If he did, they didn't use it, because otherwise Jake would probably be here, because an AED combined with CPR is life-saving. If you just do CPR, most times when sudden cardiac arrest happens, not in a hospital setting, you have 2 minutes. 2 minutes. And in Jake's case, my brother-in-law went back on the computer and traced the EMS call, and it took EMS 18 minutes to get to Jake, which is far too long. Yeah, far too long.
Especially, you're in a metropolitan area. There should be first responders,
Yeah, and Jake was literally around the corner from Mass General when he went down. He was around the corner.
Wow.
He wasn't that far.
Oh, jeez.
But, it's Boston.
Yeah.
And traffic and, whatnot. So
so someone actually witnessed him go down?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And remind me, I'll get into that after, about the security guard. So they told us that it was sudden cardiac arrest, and they confirmed it. And so, they were doing test upon test upon test. And finally, I think late that night, the cardiologist came and they asked us questions like, did he have COVID? Did he have the vaccine and whatnot? And of course we said yes. And then, so that was Tuesday. And then Wednesday, the next day, they asked if they could perform biopsies on his heart to determine whether or not he had cardiomyopathy and, other things that they were finding people were experiencing from the shot, or COVID.
Yeah, and this was very controversial to talk about years ago.
I know.
Like, you couldn't even say it. Like,
I know.
YouTube would cut it out.
Really?
Yes.
Yeah, well...
Yeah, myocarditis. It was, and that's why, I was going to ask you back in the day if he had the shot, but I was too scared to ask you.
Oh, no.
Because people were getting so offended by it.
Right. When I went back...
and I had the shot. I'm not even one of those...
I know. Look at me either.
What was coming out at that time, was... It was very, very controversial.
It was controversial.
So I'm very intrigued to hear you say that doctors at Mass General actually asked you, did he have the COVID shot?
Yeah, They asked if he, was a heavy drinker, and Hannah, his friend, the ICU nurse, stood with us the entire time. She was by our side, just explaining things to us, so in layman's terms, so we could understand. And so, Hannah spoke up and she said he didn't drink heavily. He was just an average college student who partied periodically. Yeah. But anyway, so they and he was also on the ECMO machine, which takes your blood and it pumps it out and then it oxygenates it
Yes.
and then
Puts it back
puts it back in.
Yep.
And so he started to show slight signs of improvement, and they were able to take him off of that on Friday. But they were still worried about his neurological status. So once they took him off the ECMO machine, they could take him down to perform an MRI, and they were planning on doing that Saturday. So Saturday afternoon about 3, they did that, and then the nurse, his nurse, came to get us, and I probably should have thought, that's strange. Like, she's coming to get us. Like, why didn't the doctor just come out in the waiting area? We had a lot of friends and family there. But I didn't pick up on that. And then she walked us to a room, and they were at a table probably about this size. And I just saw the look on their face. And it was a Chinese doctor and an American doctor. And the Chinese doctor just looked up, and I was like, oh, this is not going to be good. And I was like, no. I just started saying no. I'm like, no, you're not going to tell us any more bad news. I'm like, we've been through enough. We can't do this. And he said, oh, I'm really sorry. He said, there's nothing I can do, and he's not coming back to you. And so I said a few choice words. I was pretty upset. And I just remember saying, do you believe in God? And they said, and they couldn't answer me. They just went, I said, then you better go home and get on your knees and pray, because he's coming home.
Can't imagine.
Yeah, it was hell.
Yeah.
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 One of the reasons why we asked you to come on, and one of the reasons why I think your story is important to share, is that at that moment, like you said, you were living in hell. But since then, and we'll cover all of that.
Sure.
You exude now this great energy and this great positivity, and I've thought about you 100 times since you've been on the show, on our radio show, just your mindset about being positive and wanting to keep Jake's memory going and have his life change other people's lives. And it's just, I think that's important, because anybody who's grieving remembers that moment of hell, or weeks or months of
You'll
feeling
never
like you're
forget
living in hell, and nothing's ever going to get any better.
Yep.
So seeing you on the other side of that,
Thank you.
it's inspiring.
Thank you.
Especially when it's sudden.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's the thing, right?
That is just.
Yeah. You think he's going off into the world, he's going to start his life, right?
Yeah.
And then this happens. And so they provided us with that terrible news, and we didn't really know what to do. And I just said, please don't, I don't know what to do. Don't tell me I have to do anything. And they were like, no, you don't have to make any decisions right now. Like, just take some time. And,
So he's still alive at this point.
he's still alive. And so
But the brain function is
Yeah.
it's, they're
gone at that point.
there isn't any.
Yeah.
And so I went to his bedside. I don't know. Poor Jeff went out to the waiting area to tell the family. I just went right to Jake and I started praying. I think I was a lunatic, to be honest with you. And so then I don't know why, but we decided we were going to go home. We were going to go back to the condo and continue to pray. And then they called at like 2 a.m. and said, I woke up. Jeff answered his phone, and I thought, oh my God, we're going to get our miracle. Like, they're calling to tell us that there's a miracle's happened. And so I ran out into the living room. Our younger son, Luke, was there with a couple of his friends, and I started waking them up, telling them that Jake was waking up and he was coming too. And unbeknownst to me, it was that there were changes, and they look for certain things, and there were changes in his eyes that they could tell. And Jeff said, no, this is not good right now. And I was like, okay, well, we're going to continue to pray. We're going to pray. And then we were so exhausted, we were able to fall back to sleep. And at about 4:30 in the morning, they called and they said, you should come. So we got right up. I think we literally just threw clothes on. I didn't even brush my hair or my teeth, just so you know. And we ran to the hospital. And on the way there, Jeff said to me, do you know what's happening? And I said, yes. And he said, what is happening? I said, he's dying. He said, yes. I said, okay. So when we got there, we went in and the nurse said, can you receive the information I need to give you? And I said, yes, because things were starting to click. And I wasn't in denial as much as I was initially. And they said, Jake has made the decision for you. Jake's made this decision for you. And we said, okay. And they said that the brain was swelling so rapidly that it was going to eventually sever from the brainstem and he would be declared brain dead. And so we knew we didn't want that for him, right? So we decided that at 9 a.m. we were going to take him off life support. And this was at like 5 o'clock in the morning. And so Jeff called Luke to come to the hospital, and we decided it would just be the three of us. We didn't want to include his friends or any other family members.
Sure.
At that time, we felt like it just needed to be a private moment, and I had no idea what we were about to endure. And so they asked if we wanted to donate his organs, and we said yes, but then we didn't, because it was going to take like 8 more hours. And I said, we can't prolong this. It's just too excruciating.
I think any parent would be understanding
Yeah.
of that.
And his nurse said that she thought we made the right decision anyway. So then we ended up not taking him off life support until 10:30. They took him off the breathing machine, and, that death rattle they talk about. Well, we witnessed that. And I was holding one hand. Luke was on the other side. Luke had a very tender moment with Jake, which was kind of funny. Very heartbreaking, but funny at the same time, because Jake would always call Luke and say, I call him and he doesn't answer the freaking phone, and, he drives me crazy. And so we'd call Luke, you got to answer the phone. Jake's trying to get a hold of you. He's like, well, Jesus, you guys call me at the most inappropriate times, and I don't have time for this right now. But anyway, Luke expressed his love and gratitude to Jake, which was absolutely heart-wrenching, but beautiful at the same time. And Jeff was at his head, rubbing his head. And then finally I just looked at his nurse, Jen, and I just said, it was just horrific for us. I swear, some people say, oh, it's so beautiful, peaceful. For us, it was an absolute horror film. And so I just remember holding his hand, and he never responded to a touch. And in a second, all of a sudden, I could feel him squeezing my hand so tight.
Oh, wow.
And I said, Jen, yeah, he squeezed my hand so tight. And I said, Jen, is he gone? And she said, yeah, he's gone. And I thought that was so weird, because I felt him squeezing me. Now I think back, and it's almost like he was in his spiritual form saying, everything's going to be okay. Yeah. And then he was gone. And I think I stayed in the room for maybe a minute, and I was like, I can't be in here. I can't do this. So I left Jeff and Luke. And then anyway, we ended up going back to the condo. And we had a service planned in 5 minutes, and we didn't fight, and we all agreed, and things started happening. Jeff called the funeral home, and they were coming to get Jake. Like, everything happened within 5 minutes after he passed. And I walked out with a wash basin and a quilt and a handprint. That's what I left the hospital with. And I felt like everyone was walking by me and they could see my grief. I felt like they were literally like staring at me like that poor woman. And I was so pissed. I was so pissed. And
because you didn't want people to pity you, or
yes,
what do you mean you were?
Yeah, I was upset because I felt like, they could see my pain, and they were feeling sorry for me. And I was like, I don't need that, because I'm broken right now. I need people to be strong for me. And not that people knew, it's just my head was telling me a story. And the minute we left the hospital, I remember it was snowing, and it was snowing here. And the wind hit me, and I went, oh, Jake's never going to get married or have children. It was my first thought. And anyway, we made it back home, and we started planning, the service and whatnot. And I really feel like God numbs your mind, intentionally, so that you don't feel as much pain, because you have to go through all the preparation to plan. And then after it's over, I think, he says, okay, well, people are going to go back to their normal lives, and the pain's going to come with a vengeance, but I'll be here. And I really feel that, because I didn't think I was going to make it through that. The pain was excruciating. But over time, it shifted a bit, and And, you know, it took a year for my mind to get to the place of acceptance where I could say he passed and he's not physically ever coming back. But that took a year. And I had to work on that. I had to work on my mental health, and that's what I did. And 3 weeks after Jake passed, I never talked about this much. My close family and friends know, but my employer at the time couldn't wait for me to grieve. So the lovely human being that they were, they put my job on Indeed and didn't tell me. And I thought, do I focus on my grief or do I focus on my job? Wow. And I just said, I'm just going to focus on my grief and let that go.
Oh, heck yeah.
Let that shit go.
Yeah.
So that's what I did.
Yeah.
And so I spent a year working on my mental health, and I was home and I hiked with Jake's dog and my dog, and that helped, being out in nature and, you know, reading positive books and praying. I prayed very hard, and I prayed the rosary every morning because I felt like that was the only thing that gave me strength, and I prayed it faithfully. So, yeah. So we waited a year, and then we knew we wanted to keep that beautiful boy's legacy alive, and we decided, well, we should have a foundation in his name. I knew I wanted it to help families of athletes stricken with sudden cardiac arrest.
Yes.
Because that was important.
Before we get into that,
Yeah.
Did they do an autopsy?
Oh, yeah. I'm sorry. Yes,
you're
they
good.
did. So after he had passed, you know, moments after, I was in this little room in the waiting area trying to seclude myself from other families that were waiting to go in to see their critical family members. And I remember Dr. Lewis came in and he said, can we take Jake's heart? And I know it was so painful for him to ask me that. And I said yes. Like, I didn't even have to think about that. I said yes. And he said, okay, because we'd like to do, you know, perform an autopsy on him. And I said, sure, on his heart, to find out what happened. I said yes. And then he said, do you want us to put it back? And I said, yes, I want you to put it back. Like that, I thought, why are you asking me? Just put his heart back.
Yeah.
Because I wanted him to be whole. And I didn't know if we were going to bury him or cremate him at that time, but we did end up cremating him. But still, it was important for me as his mom to know that he was fully together.
Complete, yeah.
Complete. Thank you. Complete. And so they called 3 weeks after the autopsy was performed. And so the three of us were going to go for further testing, genetic testing, because they thought perhaps there was a genetic defect prior to, you know, confirming the results from the autopsy. And then it was right around the time that Damar Hamlin went down.
Oh,
we got
yeah.
the phone call from Dr. Lewis, and that's another strange story. But anyway, I'm flicking through the channels and I see the whole team on the ground around him.
Wasn't that?
And I knew, I said, Jeff, that boy just suffered sudden cardiac arrest. And he's like, you don't know. I'm like, no, my heart's telling me that this is what happened to I didn't see him. I didn't see it happen.
Yeah.
I just saw them around him. But anyway, then so that's about the time frame that Dr. Lewis called, and he said, you don't have to go for further testing. He said, Jake did not have a genetic defect. And I thought, well, thank God, because I was worried about Luke.
Your other son.
Yeah, I was worried about Luke. Well, I was worried for a long time that Jeff or Luke would be taken from me. I didn't want to be alone.
But never yourself? That never crossed your mind?
I was frightened that they were going to pass.
Yeah.
But anyway, he didn't have a genetic defect.
And you had, we were talking a little bit before the camera started rolling, and I said the word heart attack, and you were like, no. This is cardiac arrest.
This is sudden cardiac arrest.
People conflate the two often.
Mm-hmm. Yes. And what is a heart attack?
Heart attack is when there is a blockage.
That's right, my friend.
That's
yes.
right.
And sudden cardiac arrest is
just a malfunction of heart and muscle, yes?
Malfunction of the rhythm.
Right.
Yeah.
So you think, or the doctors concluded that his heart rate just increased rapidly when he was running and couldn't get back down to a normal level?
Couldn't regulate. Yep. That's what we believe. So we did receive an email that they had the results, but being that Jake was just starting his life when he was 25, he didn't have a proxy listed at that time. And so we would have to, go through the court, which probably wouldn't be that big of a deal. I mean, I don't think they would put us through the ringer, to find that information out. But Jeff doesn't want to do that. He's just at peace with knowing that this is how Jake passed. Part of me would like to know, but I'm gentle with Jeff because he's grieving differently than I'm grieving. And
Sure.
And of course, Luke's grieving differently than Jeff and I are grieving. So we just have to be gentle with each other. So maybe sometime I can find that information out. But Jeff and I do believe, as does Dr. Lewis, that it is most likely that his heart just went out of rhythm and couldn't regulate. And if that's the case, a autopsy will not reveal that result. So that's where we are right now. But you never know, maybe down the road we'll find out for sure. But Jeff's not ready right now, so.
Yeah, there is, over the last few years, I've heard more stories about young people suffering from cardiac arrest or some sort of heart issues.
Healthy young people.
Healthy young people. Denny Hamlin was just one. That's just the name everybody knows.
Right.
Damar Hamlin.
Damar Hamlin, excuse me.
That's okay. Denny Hamlin's a NASCAR driver. Damar Hamlin's a football player. Anyway.
We forgive you.
You really can't.
And she just loves to point it out. I know.
Anyway, we need a little comic relief every once in a while.
We do. Thank you.
Totally. And you're so brave to come on and tell, your story of your son who was 25 and had this happen. And I mean, so you've set up this foundation where people can get pre-screened for heart issues so we can prevent, although Jake didn't have any issues, we got to do the best we can to prevent
it. Yeah, from happening to another family. So our heart screens will be able to pick up most defects, but not all, because some are hard to determine. But I feel strongly that, all parents should take advantage of these screenings because, you can sit there and say, well, my son or my daughter, well, they're healthy. They don't have any issues. Well, guess what? My son was healthy as well. And look what happened to us. You just don't know. And so it is very important for me to be able to provide these screenings so that we can find out if there is a defect before it becomes critical. Because trust me, I don't want to see another family walk in my shoes. It was really hard for us, to find out what happened to poor AJ Riello, that was really hard to hear that. But luckily for him, he's on the road to recovery and he's going to be okay. And
Jake's foundation has helped out his family tremendously in their journey.
Yep. We're honored to be able to help, and I say Jake will not be the last young person to pass from sudden cardiac arrest, and AJ Riello won't be the last to suffer a cardiac event. It's going to happen again. It's going to happen again. But it's not rare. I mean, doctors are even saying, oh, it's rare. It's not rare. It's been happening for many years. I think we're just more aware of it now because there's social media, people are more aware around here because a lot of people knew Jake and they knew, the journey that he was on. And they're like, I think they're just blown away that this happened to such a healthy, young, vibrant, athletic person.
You said at a recent screening that Jake's foundation helps put on at a local high school here that was open to kids of all ages, high school
8 to 25.
8 to 25, that 2 people have found heart defects due to that screening that they maybe would never have picked up on.
They never would have.
That's got to make you feel amazing.
I feel so good about that. We tested 77 kids at our last screening, and they found 2 abnormalities. One family has reached out to me, and express their gratitude, and their child is going for further testing, and they'll let me know, what the findings are, and I will share that with, of course, their permission. I won't share their name unless they want to, But I haven't heard from the second family.
Language online. Where do we get more information on the
Jake Hescock Foundation?
Jake Hescock Foundation.
You can visit. Give me a minute. Why am I having a moment? I know my brain's on overload.
You can probably Google Jake Hescock.
Well, you can just go to winthedayfoundation.com. Yeah.
All right.
It's not .org, although we are a 501c3.
Yeah.
But we had started the
process before we
got that number. Yeah. So, but yeah, and there's a place to donate to the foundation, and then you can read our mission and Jake's story. And Jake's ICU nurse wrote a beautiful letter about her experience with our family and Jake's final moments. It's a beautiful, heartfelt letter that she wrote. So,
well, it's great that you keep sharing his story, and your positivity, like I said, is just overwhelming. And I love that, you experience every mother's worst nightmare, but you're not letting that. It's almost made your life better in a certain way, or your mission, your purpose, is kind of bigger than that now.
I know, and I never thought that I would be able to stand on my own 2 feet without one of my children. Never did I imagine that, but I really believe that over time I've opened up my heart and to receive messages. Jake is definitely all around us. I can feel his energy sometimes, and I feel like he is guiding us. I feel like he's guiding me, his father, most definitely his brother. I feel like he would not want us to wallow in sadness. He would want us to keep persevering and living life to its fullest, because I know that's what he would want for us. I can feel that very strongly. And, it would be so easy to curl up in a ball, but early on after he passed, I made a promise to myself that I would get out of bed, and the first thing I would do is make my bed, because if I made my bed, I wouldn't be able to get back in it. I mean, I could unmake it, but I'm not going to unmake it after I make it, right?
Yeah.
So I was like, I'm just going to make that damn bed, and I'm going to stay out of it, and I'm going to make sure that I shower, as painful as that was, get dressed and go about my day, even if I did nothing. But at least for me, at the very beginning stages of my grief journey, making the bed was a huge accomplishment. Huge.
Yeah.
And so, starting the foundation, and, I think that's just incredible, because I never thought I'd be able to do something like this and provide these screenings. But, I think when you're meant to be on the path that you're on, just things fall into place and resources are provided to you, and you meet the right people. And, I met you, and, you've helped me, and you've allowed me to share my story, and it's just incredible. And I really feel like, they are very much okay, the people that we love that have crossed the veil, and they're rooting for us to do well here until it's our turn to go and, make the most out of life and don't waste time. Because Jake didn't waste time. It's important.
I agree.
Well,
Carey
thank you.
Hescock,
Yeah.
everybody. Yes, we appreciate your bravery. And,
Thank you.
Yeah.
I really appreciate you guys.
Yeah.
Anytime.
Okay.
All right.
You got a date? Thank you.
Thanks a lot.